All right, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here. So I'm going to show you the latest and greatest way how to build apps with 2Sexy, which is a lot faster and a lot nicer than it's ever been before. And for the terminology, we're calling these typed apps. You'll understand just why in a moment. Thank you for our sponsors, and you can also become patrons and support us directly. So I'm not even going to do a whole lot of talking, first of all. I'm going to actually just start coding with you guys and then explain a little bit later on what's happening. Now, I might just have challenges with the two screens. Give me one moment.
Maybe roll it back a little bit for you there so you can see.
Okay, it is sharing the screen. Very good. Okay, here we have a normal DNN. Let me just refresh the screen that we know everything is up and running. And we're going to create like a brand new catalog app, which is just a very typical example for any kind of list details. We're not going to focus on the design right now, but let me just start by adding an app here. And of course, it's going to ask me what do I want, and I'm going to create a completely new app, which I'm just going to go through. I'm not going to explain everything, but there's like different app templates now. We also added this just a few weeks ago. We hope to add even more things like React and Angular templates just to get started more quickly. And for the purpose of the demo, this is going to be the catalog too, because I already made one, of course, in preparation for this. And so we've now created the catalog app. It's fairly empty. Let me just make sure I get the right one. And let me just move this down here. Okay. The new empty apps at least have some minimal instructions. Previously, you didn't see anything at all. It was just like, oh, there's nothing here. Bummer, now what? Okay, so there's at least some guidance here. It has some links to documentation, how to get started and everything. And I'm not going to do like the ultra basics in 2Sexy, but let me just open the app management in the second tab. I do presume you guys can see it, right? Is the font size sufficient, or should I do some zooming? Probably better, huh? Okay. So we have a completely empty app, and we're going to start this entry here. You see, this is because it's my test system. Just ignore this. This is some shared content type. Just don't worry about it. You wouldn't have that. And I'm going to start by, first of all, saying that we're going to create something like product. And we're also going to create something like a brand. And we're going to create something like a customer quote for saying this is the best product in the world and that kind of stuff. Okay, and I'm just preparing a few things here, and I'm just doing it live. I could have prepared it for you, but I feel like it's more realistic if you see this happening, and it's not going to take too much time. So the brand will have a name, and it would have a link. This, of course, is a hyperlink, and it could also have a logo, for example, which would also be just a file. Yeah, because it's zoomed, I had to scroll down a bit. So that's what our brand does. The customer quote itself is also not going to be super exciting. We're probably going to add a name here for the person doing it, a quote. And of course, also a photo is like a typical thing we would add just to make it more friendly and all that. So this is just some very basic information. I guess so far, no major questions. Now the product is going to be a little bit more interesting now. We're going to give it a title. And we're going to give it let's say a description. This could of course be a WYSIWYG because you might want to do much more than just a little bit of text. We're going to give it a main image. We're going to also call it that just to be very sure that we know what we're doing. We're going to give it a gallery to say, okay, there's like 20, 30 pictures here describing the product. We're also going to say this is a file reference, but this is like a whole library of files. Okay? Then we're going to have a brand. And here's why I made the other data types, is we're going to say the brand, of course, is a reference, but the brand is just going to point to one piece of information. whereas the customer quotes are going to point to multiple pieces of information. Make sense? All right, so this is also an entity reference. And for the brand, of course, we're going to go in there and say, yes, this is the brand. That's what it should be. It's only one item. Whereas when I'm going to go to the customer quotes, I'm going to say this is customer quote, but it's going to be multiple items. Now, the reason this is important is internally, a reference to another piece of information is, of course, let's say generic, which means if you would really look at the internal API, it's always going to have a one-to-many relationship. But you'll see just in a moment as we start generating some code that it's going to know this is just expecting one piece of information, this expects a list of information, and we're going to have a different experience doing that. Okay, so that's like the basic setup. Now, I'm just going to enter a little bit of dummy data just to get started. So there's the brand DNN-Connect. And don't know the link by heart. Just going to quickly add that. We're going to add another brand. I'm going to skip the logo for now. Let's just make a customer quote. Who would like to quote something? Do you spell your name that way? Probably, huh?
Double S instead of X.
Okay.
Just put DNN, Deepa, come on.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Do you spell it with a hyphen or uppercase or?
The casing is wrong, but yes, that's okay.
Okay, that's a good quote. Okay, so we have, let's just make a second one because as I said, we're going to have multiple here. Anybody?
I think it means what you think it means.
Huh?
I do not think it means what you think it means.
What?
Never mind.
That's your quote.
Wow.
Okay, so that was David.
DNN Dave.
Okay.
DNN Dave.
Yeah, Dave, huh?
Casing is all wrong, you people. Wow.
You're wrong.
Okay, now I'm just going to add our first dummy product, right? Like some kind of a bird. Okay, and I just took a bird because I'm pretty sure I have a bird in here somewhere in my pictures, so.
Good reason to choose a bird.
Yeah, I'm probably going to miss out on it and then get the wrong picture. Then somebody's... Right, there it is, yeah. Yeah, nobody's showing the bird, so all right. And then some of your typical randomly click together, oh, this picture could be useful. Might need that someday. So here's just our very first. So this is a DNN-Connect product, of course, and we're going to have DNN Dave and Dave and Goliath in here. Okay? And you might have noticed a few things if you've been using this for a while. The drop-down behavior was slightly different. We've been working a lot on that recently. But it's still in the background, still some hidden stuff. We done it, right? Now we just need to get this out. And this is where it used to become more challenging because you always would have to go look, what's the name of that field again, for example? Remember that experience?
2 screens at least.
Yeah. So but what we have now is we have this thing called our Copilot. And I'm just going to hit this, and I just generated a little bit of code. You're clapping, but you don't even know why, right?
No, I know why.
Yes,
we
Better be brilliant now.
Okay, now, here we're now going to switch over to Visual Studio Code. And we have to be a little bit careful here because actually the very latest release of VS Code had an issue. And I just spent this morning trying to make sure the demo will not fail. But yeah, we're there, huh? So, whoop.
It's radish.
This is the Amsterdam feeling Ticha was talking about yesterday.
Oh yeah, now it's worse than that. Sorry.
Sit on this side of the room. It's going to do that.
You know what? But does it have electric blinds, maybe? Maybe you could check if there's a, because I could imagine that they know this is a problem. Are there blinds coming down? No? Oh, that's just the light. And the light is coming from over there, I guess.
I'm just going to move to the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody.
Sorry.
So let me just tell you what actually happened when I hit that Copilot button. It created this AppCode folder.
Can you zoom in a little bit? Zoom?
Zoom sounds like something I could do.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
And now it created a few things for me, including, for example, here's this brand. Now, I'm going to quickly say something that's very technical for people who care. The rest can just quickly phase out for just a second. Okay? We're actually creating two classes. One of them is in the namespace auto-generated, and it has a fairly weird name. Okay? The reason we're doing this is because we actually want to create a real class in the namespace app data brand. That's the one you should be using, the one you can extend. The other one we will continuously overwrite. Okay? But because there's two classes and you might accidentally pick the wrong one in your code if they had the same name, we really gave it an ugly prefix to make sure you wouldn't by accident pick that one. Okay?
Idea, there's decorators you can put, so it doesn't show in the drop-downs of suggestions.
Good point.
Send you some.
Like that, yeah. Okay, but this basically just generated everything we just discussed, which means that when I will then create a new file, I can use IntelliSense, and it's actually going to show me this text here as help, which is way better than ever before. So let's just start doing that. Let's quickly create a view. I'm just going to call this catalog main, and I'm also going to say this is a hybrid catalog main. So the defaults are not ideal yet because it's the wrong default, you could say. And just for now, I'm going to say this doesn't need data. You'll see why in a moment. So the system doesn't have to prepare data for it for this example that we're doing. Now we just created the file. I'm going to switch over to that view. This quickly needs to compile something. And of course, it's pretty unexciting at the moment, which is why we're going back here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say it's using, and I'm even going to say it's going to use appcode.data. Now, this seems harmless, but it actually does a little bit more than you might expect, because here's the thing. We introduced a new compiler and all that into here, and we were not quite sure if we could enforce it on every single file that's already been out there. Saying I'm going to use AppCode actually means it's going to switch over to use C#8 and things like that. If you don't type this in, you're still on C# 7.3 or something. This could sometimes cause surprises, but it's just until we're very confident we're not breaking anything out there. Now, so all this pretty harmless, but let's try something. Let's just quickly make a fake example and say var x equals new, and then we would say product. Now this is not going to work, of course, but then I can do x dot, and you will see it says it has a brand, it has children, it has customer quotes, it has all that, and it even tells you what it is and all that. Okay? So this is like insanely better than before.
Yep.
And this was actually, even for us, we could not have done this a year ago because Visual Studio Code introduced new features which even allowed us to do this. So this is really, really fun. But it's just the entry-level drug. So let's say we want to get all the products, because this is our list page, right? And you see I get help, right? And I'm going to get all product. And I can mouse over get all, and it's going to tell me what that does. This is like Zen compared to before. Okay? Type refresh, type refresh, type refresh, right?
Is get all I-queryable and you can do paging and stuff, or it's a list with everything?
It's an INumerable.
INumerable.
Yeah. But what we could do, of course, is then say dot order by, and then say p dot, and I think it's the title, or did we have a name? No, I think it's the title. Yeah. But you see, it'll tell me this. I'm okay with that. So we now have the products, and let me just do a to list. Of course, this is just a minor optimization. And let's just quickly verify it still compiles. This does take just a moment longer because in the background, he's now getting all those C# files. And I'm going to show you some examples that have like 100 C# files in it already. He's going to create a DLL. He's going to cache that, so as long as those files don't get touched, he's not going to recompile that main part. But of course, he has to recompile this razor here. Now, it doesn't look much different from before, but let's get started here and do just a list for now. And let's skip the link for a moment and just do a to-do. But I think, I'm just going to guess that this is probably already quite appropriate. Yeah, we have a bird. Exciting. Okay, so we have the product here. We are going to maybe just make sure we know what we're doing. So this is actually, we're going to not show the title here, but just do a more. And do wrong caps. So there we are. And we could add, well, okay, I don't care. And of course, maybe we're going to need the picture of the bird here because you never know. And here we go again. I need the picture. And it does something apparently. And I think it was called main image. The reason, I could also just do .main image, but then I would just get the URL.
So is that what you get?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
So add product.main image, and you'll, by the way, see we auto-generate 3 properties for every hyperlink. We have the main image, which is the URL. We have the main image file, which is the iFile object. And we have the main image folder, which we'll use in just a second for creating the gallery, which contains all the files in that field.
It's a standard .NET iFile.
No.
No.
It's ours, and it's tied to the DNN IDs and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So we have this picture here, and for very obvious reasons, it's going to be too large. So let's just say that we want the width to be, let's say, 25%. Wait, I can't do that. So it's .25. So I think that should work. Okay, that width didn't quite work. Oh, yeah, because, wait, that would be factor. The difference is that there's settings in the background which say what the layout is meant to be doing. And if you resize by a factor, it will better adjust to whatever the design is actually expecting. Right? You could fix pixel it, but then if the theme would change and the theme would have very different specs, it's just nicer to be adjusting to a factor.
So
Yeah.
that percentage is of the width or of the size of the original image?
It's of the expected 100% width of the current resize settings, which by default are content, but there's also a lightbox setting. So I could also do, just for understanding, I do think we have the time, I could also say settings, oops, sorry about that, settings, lightbox, and now it would take a much larger base size and do 25% of what the lightbox is, right? So there's a few different presets. You can make your own. There's a square one, etc. This is just so that components which are like more in charge of background can have presets that are much larger. And with the picture tag, it will also generate different sizes and possibly different formats for whatever the browser could use. So these things, depending also if you have the patrons feature, could even say the picture tag might make like 8 or 10 different lines of code telling the browser, if you're in this size and you have this requirement and your layout is like this, then this is the URL you're going to get.
Is there a documentation link on the picture XML docs?
Very good question. Is there a link here? I have a feeling this is just too long.
Okay.
Because normally you should, I think like on the kit toolbar here you will get it, and the picture you will find that too. It's a very brief redirect. It takes a second just because we cannot put the real links in there, but you see we do go from VS Code directly to the documentation wherever possible. So again, these are like, compared to before, the guesswork, it's just Totally different world. Okay, so we have our, let me just refresh that. Close what we've been opening here.
Who is responsible? How is the compilation flow? Is it when you refresh
Yep.
the site?
When you refresh a page that uses that code. So if I would switch back here to the first dummy hello page, and you may change the code, it would not recompile. Okay, but let's go on and add details. And we're also just going to, for now, because I just want to keep this a little quick, and we're just going to get the data from the code. I would usually do it slightly more sophisticated than that, but for now, oh, and I forgot to say that the view should automatically appear, of course, when it would have like catalog ID with anything behind it. So what does that mean? This means we're going to have to create a link that says that the catalog ID is in there. And to do this, we are going to first use the @link.to API. And I must admit, this one is probably one that, even though it's been in there since forever and it's very well thought out, I think I have not done a good enough work to explain what actually happens. Because there's so many things that can go wrong with the link, you guys can simply not imagine it. For example, let's say you would just add a parameter. Well, then if something happens that generates one parameter incorrectly, you could accidentally generate an infinite amount of pages, which will just ruin your Google's SEO, right? So just saying, just add this sucks. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say we just want to point to the current link page, so we're not going to mention the page. But we're going to say the parameter should take the page from my page dot parameters, by the way. By the way, sometimes if you're like thinking, which objects even exist here, you could also just do this dot, and then you would see things like that, right?
I would have said
So my page dot parameters dot set, and we're going to say catalog ID, and of course we're going to take the product dot ID. Okay, so this might be a little bit tight here because of the screen. Sorry, there's just so much to know, and it's so hard to communicate everything.
I like your shine.
I wasted hours
Yes.
trying to figure just that out.
Yeah. The parameters object is incredibly smart. Okay? There's so much you can do with it. You can also say something like filter because I only need these parameters and everything else should disappear. I don't want to start fixing things around. You can do set, you can do remove. So it does a whole lot, but you have to first be aware that this is even a problem, right? So it's all documented, and so we now have a link here. Okay, my styling here isn't quite right, and so the link worked correctly, but catalog ID, the view switching did not. Did I spell something wrong?
Isn't the template for the details empty?
You need the detail view was created?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it would have to have.
So have the
So it's bringing me the wrong view all of a sudden, and I cannot quickly figure out what it does. Since, especially, it's such a trivial use case that it's like, did I configure something wrong? Catalog ID the wrong thing?
maybe you need to have the data there as the
So, of course, I ran this once before, and let me just quickly have a quick peek at if I did anything differently here. This is my debug mode, of course, but looks identical. You know what? I think I probably just mucked up. Here's the correct one. I probably have, look, I'm pointing to the wrong file. So it did everything right.
Just repeat.
Yeah. Okay, so nothing exciting yet. So now we're going to look at the details. And now, again, I did the very quick version. Typically, we would use a query for this. But again, just to demo a little bit more code, remember, if I don't use this, then, of course, I don't know which class it is. That's point one. And we're going to do now this. And now we're going to get the page parameters again. And here too, we have the parameters object also has all these typed accessors. So I could even do int, blah, 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 and I could do, if I don't know, then I could say like, okay, fallback is going to be whatever. So, because these are just very, very typical problems, operations. Let's just refresh and make sure nothing bombs. Okay. Everything should be fine at the moment. Yep. And now let's try something new. I could do this thing here. And then, of course, I could do to HTML and all that kind of stuff. But I can also do this. And you'll probably wonder what the difference should be.
What will the difference be?
If I mouse over this one, I get an edit functionality just for the WYSIWYG field. Okay, somebody's asking, can you turn that off? And the answer is toolbar false. Because, well, now that you have IntelliSense, it is easier. You just need to know that it's there, and then you'll find it, right?
And if you want to go crazy, you could do AppProduct HTML name of
Yes.
description, so that way even that is strongly typed.
Yes. Now the toolbar's gone. Darn, where is it?
Yeah.
Now, why this special new.html?
Yeah, why?
Okay. About a year ago, we introduced the ability to put pictures in the WYSIWYG, which is totally responsive. You guys probably did not realize that. But if I would reconfigure the data here, the product data, and let me just go to the description here, and I would say that I don't want the default WYSIWYG, I want the rich media WYSIWYG. It's going to change its behavior. And that has far-reaching consequences. So let me just reactivate the toolbar here for the experience. Because previously it was close to impossible to have like text-image combinations in the WYSIWYG which match the expectation of the user. And we wanted to make sure that if we do have pictures inside it, we need them to also scale correctly in terms of there's different sizes, etc. It shouldn't just be, here's the picture the way the user uploaded it, he had no clue. And if I'm in here now, it feels like it didn't quite take that config. Let me just check again. Let me quickly go to the full toolbar. I could have maybe mucked up something. Let me just quickly check. I'm expecting something slightly different, but I don't use this functionality every single day. Let me just drop something in here. Okay. It's not doing exactly what I wanted to show you.
Is it at the right button?
No. It should even give me different toolbars, so either I did not save this, or am I on the wrong field? No, it's a description field.
Are you like that? When you open the other one,
You are right.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's the, am I plugged in at all? Is the power on? Okay. But yes, having two apps that are basically identical does introduce new challenges. Let me just save it with that picture so that, oh, actually that might not have the expected effect because the moment we insert the picture, we have to do more in the HTML than we did before. Now we see more toolbars. Let me just reinsert this again, and you'll notice a few things that are different. First of all, it doesn't look that different, but let's say it has to be exactly 50% width and right aligned, and there's a padding and all that. Okay? And even there's some pretty other crazy stuff. So let's now say, okay, I'm going to want to make sure that I'm going to have a separator now, and it should maybe not be this big. Okay? Been there, done that, fucked, and been like, and my customer will never figure this out. Well, let's say it's just a width of a third, and let's say we have another picture beside it that's width of a third. Damn, it looks like it might be doing the right thing unexpectedly. You know what I mean? It's like getting these things to align the way you wanted them, and now we can just say, okay, this one's left aligned, and you see the padding starts to appear correctly, and this one's left aligned, and goodness, it's actually going to work side by side, the correct distances and everything. That's what the .html is for. Yes, and responsive,
Okay.
and multiple resolutions, and every fucking thing you'd want in a picture tag. Okay, that's what the .html is for. And I just don't even have time to communicate all that.
Yeah.
We are really happy, thank you.
You should do a conference.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so that was...
Record on this, right?
Very good, very good. Okay, so we looked at some of the picture, we looked at the HTML. Let's add a real gallery because that's what we wanted to do all along. I mean, this product has pictures in it. So here we are, and now let's just add a div there to make sure there's a bit of gap here. And let's get the pics. I think it was gallery. There we go. Gallery folder dot files. And or is it a property or a method? See, I don't even remember myself, but I think that looks about right. Yeah. So this will just get us the files. And I could, of course, just put it in a for each as well. There you go. Might just work, might not. Let's have a quick peek. Okay, something's not happy yet. Okay, it doesn't contain a title because it's, of course, name. Okay, we have the files here. They're not quite as nice yet as we want. And we're not in a, this is not our object anymore, right? This is not our product object. It's just a object. So for that, we're going to have to use the service. And I think that should get us started. Okay, and now, of course, similar problem, right? We're going to want a factor here. And I can also do this. The reason why I do that is because there's a lot of scenarios where, okay, something's a little off here where there's a link around or something. The alt could be, might need some encoding, or did I?
You have quotes within quotes?
Oh, no. My bad. I mean, I don't need an image tag, of course. I'm creating a picture tag. That's so. Right. The reason why it has that factor there, or why the factor can accept all these formats is because there's all kinds of scenarios where you might not have a drop-down just to pick a size. And if you want to also have that work together with CSS, what's it called, functions, where you might have functions that calculate different CSS based on the size, and there typically it's I think 1:3 or something like that. So it's a different. So it takes 1/:, 1/. It takes like 3 or 4 combinations that all kind of make sense to calculate the factor for you.
And that factor is a ratio of the original image, a ratio
The factor is again based on the, let me just show this because I guess the question appeared a few times now.
Yeah.
How bad am I going to go on this one? Okay. Give me a second because
You can just say it's complicated. It just
Yeah.
works, okay?
now you guys do want to know it, but okay. In every system, there's presets, there's settings on the whole installation, settings on each site, settings on each app. And this is inherited. And for example, I'm now on the, let's say, more global thing, and I could say on the site, I want to open the site settings, and maybe I would even want to change these, and I'd go to the system settings, and there's these image settings here, and I'm going to make custom ones for now, and so I'm going to have these presets, and I'm going to generate a new one for content. Now, I'm, of course, on the site level here, but again, we're inheriting the whole thing.
So this was the light box you used earlier.
Yes, because it could also be Lightbox. There's presets for all of these, which say what is the size my layout, my design is going to do. And the reason we have this whole cascade is because when you install the blog app and the gallery app and the news app and everything, they should all obey the same rules, and you don't want to go through each and every code file to adjust the pixels from 1200 to 1280 just because that's what you want. And I'm just going to override a very dumb value here, but if I would say, well, the contents width is now just 400, I'm going to leave all the remaining values blank. That means they get inherited. I would have now overridden something that doesn't make a lot of sense, but now the standard width for normal content images is just 400, and if I do this now, maybe I need to quickly touch a file because it's probably not watching that for changes. Okay, you might not see it because I'd have to quickly check. Maybe there's some situations where because the screen is bigger, because we're also giving higher resolutions. So I guess my demo here is not going to be...
It's good factors. So,
Yeah,
So the default would be content if you don't specify.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also specify blank to override that. You cannot specify null because null means I don't know, nothing was set, I'm going to find content. Yeah. And so each app will typically obey that. So sometimes you need lightbox settings, sometimes you need, and so there's all these different parameters that you can set at every level. And you can create your own as well, of course. Okay, so we were there. Let me just see how much time I have because I could go infinitely further. So we have the pictures here. Let's, this is basically working. Let's go back up here, and I'm going to put this between let's quickly, sorry about that. The brand, for example, right? The brand, and this is a single item of type brand, which we just created. But if we did var quotes, and we have .customer quotes, I believe. This is a list of customer quote because the auto-generated code knew what was coming. This also means, of course, if you go to the settings and change that, and for whatever random reason you would go in there and say, damn, I think from now on my brand, we have two brands for whatever random reason.
we were on the wrong app, that's why.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, so if I would change something here and say, okay, that this is different, like brand, I'm going to have multiple, then of course you would only get the first one in your code until you regenerate the file. So now I'm going to show you a little bit of extra magic because we have time. Remember that apps can have resources. And that would be nice if that were typed too. But it needs a bit of magic for that, but we've done it. So let's just say we have the link more button, which is like a really important resource. And we're going to edit this, and we're going to say more. And we're going to add an emoji here, just so we can really tell the difference that we're getting from the resources. Now, the app object is a global object, and if I do app.resources, then it cannot suddenly provide me with a typed object specific to this app. Make sense? So app comes from the system. this app resources is only in here. So I just added this field. I think I'm also, just to make it clear what's happening, I'm just going to quickly initialize this repo so that I can do 1 or 2 commits and show better what's happening. Sorry about that, it's a bit loud. Okay, we're not going to push, I didn't think about that, but okay. So let's first of all regenerate the code. Takes 3 milliseconds, intense work. But you now see that the app resources has this new field in it. But now what we're missing is this tiny missing piece here. So let me just go back to the list page.
That could be used for like static localization.
Yes, you could call it that. Yes, yes. Now, what we don't have yet is we're missing a Razor base class. Why would we want that? So let's go back to the views, because the views also has a Copilot. And there's some stuff in here that's actually not a view. There's also a generator for services and for web APIs, but we just don't have anywhere else to put it yet. So let's generate some Razor. And now we have a new folder, AppCode Razor. And what this does is it will create a new object called app, which has typed resources and settings. So if I go back here now, and I'm not going to inherit from this anymore. I'm going to inherit from appcode.razor.apprazor. Then I can now do this. Which I could not do before. And, dun, 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 we should have an emoji now. Yeah.
If you would localize the resource, it would just magically work.
Yeah.
Picks up the language from the environment.
Yeah, yeah. I believe I can demo that in actually 20 seconds, because what I see is I just forgot to activate the languages. So German English is now activated. Let's refresh this page. Let's go to the app resources and go to German, and I could run it through auto-translate, but I think I can do this. Let's just put it in a different emoji so we're really aware of what's happening. And let me refresh. We're still in English. Let me go to German. It is different. Yeah, and settings the same thing, but settings are typically not culturally customized. But again, thanks to, and that's where this whole magic comes in with it, Razor-based classes. And that's why there's also service-based classes, and why there's also web API-based classes, is to get a typed app object. Unfortunately, we need this customize helper. This is the auto-generated code, but I can do way more. And with that, I can continue working. So.
Oh, you also get the settings here.
What do you mean? Yes, yes. These are the AppCode app settings, the ones that were auto-generated right here. Okay, just a few more gems in case you really want to know a little bit more. Every of these auto-generated files has a sample of how you could extend it. So let me just extend the class product. I'm going to add a new file, product.cs, and this will not get overwritten, of course, when we regenerate. That's why we need to have a separate file. And I could just do anything random here, like, calculated fields or something that combines something like. By the way, this syntax that I'm writing here, this requires C#8, right? Or I could do something like, and then I can do that. It requires C#8, and it's such a big difference. Before, writing this took about 8 or 10 lines of code just to do it properly. They were not long lines, they were squigglies and things like that, like nothing exotic, but it just was nasty. And just a question mark equals only exists since C#8. And that's why this is so much more glorious. But now I can just do .isNew if I really cared about it, like product details. Right? And that will just work. And that's how you can extend the functionality of certain objects without breaking the, okay, we're not there yet. The output writer for code generation, there we go. I guess it's just a quick, sometimes of course there's like a lot of threads happening at the same time and while you're developing, yeah. That's this so far. Want to see a little more?
Sure.
We're a little under, so I have all the important stuff done, but let me just show you, for example, the Möbius form builder. That was, the form before required you to write code for everything, and the latest and greatest wrong thing. I think I have it in here somewhere. There we go. Allows you to, on screen, just move fields up and down, give them new names, different labels in different languages, all that kind of stuff. So kind of what you would have expected for forever. To be honest, we always thought somebody else was going to do that after we did our first proof of concept, how to even save data and all that. But nobody ever got around to it. So this is like this form builder. Oh yeah, by the way, minor detail. This is going to make you guys happy too. Like the Möbius app, it exists in 2 editions, live and staging, so that you can do open heart surgery in a productive site without breaking stuff. Okay?
Out of this.
Yeah. But this has always been, one detail has been annoying. You had to log out to see what the end user's seeing, also to verify you didn't break anything. But now, there's 2 ways, either with this special editions button, but also in this button, which will tell you a lot about which queries are being used on this view and what view it is and all that. You can now also switch editions and say, I just quickly need to see the live edition, and then refresh the page, and then you'll see the live edition. And you can also set permissions that an admin can see staging, so that he can go and preview what you did. That was just introduced in the last version, right? So that's kind of cool. But either way, I would edit something here, and I would let me just. I guess I mucked this one up already. I was just testing stuff here. Add a new form, right? You can have these fields, you can edit them, move them up and down, what you'd basically expect. And this is just a cool goodie. But what I wanted to show you is the code behind it. So again, you see there's live, there's staging. At the moment, it has an identical copy of the code because it's in production. But if you just look at this, for example, we have the form builder, which is code that would typically overwhelm any designer. And then we have very nice separation of concerns. We have for each type of field, for example, let's just take like a text field. Doesn't need a lot of code. The pickers get a little bit more complicated with reading the configuration and doing everything. But this is all how you would like to develop a C# application. You can now do this. Before, it was a lot of guesswork, a lot of get code, and it gets a dynamic back, and I'm going to hope I know what's coming back because it's all guesswork. This is all now strictly typed the way you'd like it. And at the same time, of course, the Razor file itself is now something you can give a designer and say, make just this a little bit nicer. Okay, so this is one of the, let's say, more sophisticated examples. But it's all in the same principle. Once you figured it out, and if you can program, then this makes a lot of sense.
So the form builder just generates this file, basically?
No, the form builder, this is, the form builder generates like each input field, because of course a radio button.
And the file repeats to display them, basically.
It'll take the configuration that you have in here to then say, okay, look, this is a text field, this is blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but yeah, anybody that's like, oh, I don't want Bootstrap, I need something specific, you just can do a few changes and bam, you have it, right? But all this was way more difficult without typed code. And way more difficult because, you see, I know I would have understood it, but I need to make things other people can then work with it. It's just not useful if I'm the only one that can maintain it.
Should help with the development.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now there's this form data, which is just a table with this sorting feature and all that. And you can export it. And you can also, by the way, you can say the form is just generic, then it'll technically just save JSONs. But you can also create a content type, which has the same fields, and say that's where it's supposed to go into. It'll still copy the JSON just in case you mucked up, but it will create real content types for any kind of reuse, whatever you'd want to do. And there's file upload and everything, so yeah, quite sophisticated.
And you could create a service and submit
Sure.
and do whatever you want, generate the PDF, send an email, whatever. Right?
Yeah, service is a good point. I'd quickly like to look at that for a second. Let me see. Okay, here's one thing I'd like to show you. This is Möbius, and there's this CSV helper. It just gets you the download link. Nothing super exotic, but we just need it in 2 places. Now, you can create normal C# classes, and you can just make new this and this all done. But if you need context, that means if your service, your helper, whatever, needs to know what app I'm on, etc., then that's of course a much richer operation than just an object with 3 properties. Then you must of course inherit from one of the base classes that can do this. And you must use getService, because that will create the object and inject the context. So if I'm going to look for a CSV helper being used here in the code, it should only be used with getService here. This one's not zoomed, right? I guess I could go a bit bigger here.
Will that support dependency injection in the constructor?
Yes. Yes, it will support dependency injection. Of course, you need to have an init or setup to give it anything else. But yes, DI is fully supported and fully integrated in DNN-DI. So if you ever need those services, they're there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I could show you for 3 more hours, but you guys have questions. What were you building with? What were you stuck on?
Not a question, but an idea. If you go back where you had the Z something,
Okay, let me just go back to our catalog app here and the auto-generated code.
you decorated above that editor browsable.
It should work, yeah. Yeah.
Should work.
99%, yeah. Don't know the whole. It's system.component model
Yes, it is.
ob something like editor browsable. There we go.
And that should, I don't know if it's going to be live, but it should remove it from the suggestions.
But it does need me to add another name. No, I don't. It doesn't if I write it out like that. Yeah. So we still have all of them. No, what the product is the one I think I decorated. No, it's still appearing at the moment.
Maybe it needs to close up the outlet or something.
Could be. Yeah. I'm a little hesitant to reload it right now. Here's the reason. This morning it didn't. IntelliSense didn't work, and I had a half an hour of pressure because you see, I told you this stuff just works for a few months now using the C# dev kit. And I had to manually downgrade to version 1.429 for now to get it to work. For some reason, it seems to now want to log in on the Microsoft platform to authenticate or something. And I just couldn't figure it out in this brief time, so I just downgraded. I think if you have it logged on correctly, there's something like an entitlement API call that's being made, and I'm like, huh? What? But yeah, I just downgraded for now. I think probably when you guys install it and it'll ask you to log on, it'll just work. But I was under pressure here.
I know what you do.
Yeah.
Then when the link to that, you know, if you
Yeah.
wanted to feed it to a specific page, page ID is one of the parameters, right?
Yeah.
Just get page ID of the other page instead of, it's like if you get page colon.
Yeah. Okay. So his challenge is, yeah, it's not perfect.
Okay.
It
Some magic or something. I mean, I have to do something ugly to strip out.
you have to do you have to get the string property instead of the URL,
Okay.
and then find it.
The column.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking of ways to make it more there, but everything feels a little bit too specific to that use case. So even though that use case does make sense, it doesn't feel like something that should be in the API. So I just don't have a perfect answer to that yet.
Because it would be DNN specific, whatever you do.
No, I think Octane would have the same thing, but it's like if I extend like the auto-generated classes with properties like page ID, weird. If I say ID, then it could get a file ID instead of a page ID. It's a little bit.
What if you just pass the whole page object or something?
too much bloat.
We'd have to change the API because at least the dot property will, of course, not, it has to be a string. And I cannot, there's no way I can hide something inside a string. That's just not possible.
Yeah.
Because a string is not a real object, it's a value type. If it were a real object, I could hide something inside it that it would just pick up magically, but I can't do that.
I was convinced there had to be a better way, and then ended up hacking it in anyway. You know, just to
Yeah, no, totally. But so far I don't have one without making either a lot of APIs just for this, and nobody would know about them anyways.
Maybe an extension method, like page ID that hides that ugliness there.
Could be an idea, yeah. Yeah. Okay, what other things can I just show you while we still have 3 or 4 minutes? Image metadata. I'm not sure if you guys have been aware of this feature.
Little bit.
Right, if I hover over any image that was created with the .image or picture service, oh yeah, by the way, new info's here. Yeah, it'll tell you a lot more of how the resize actually happened, because that's been confusing people. Why is it this size? Okay, so we've been trying to extend a lot of things, including here. And if I would show you this on the Möbius, for example, I think we might have a more sophisticated example. No. For example, on the blog app, it'll tell you even way more. Like, this is the query I was using. These are the streams I got back and everything. So all this stuff that you've been just guessworking so far, it's all just coming and coming. And yeah, this is how it got resized. It's like, oh, okay, it's based on settings, images, content. One of those questions that was appearing there, right? And does it have custom image settings? No. What are custom image settings? Well, I could have said that I would like to have the crop focus on the top left or let's say bottom right corner. And
That's the focus point of the image, let's say.
a bird. Yes, we're still trying, but you see it moved a little bit now, right? And this will now tell you custom image settings. Yes, it has them. This is what's happening. It's being resized in aspect ratio of golden ratio 1.618. Crop bottom right. So this is just supposed to help you guys figure out what's actually happening under the hood. There's too much magic.
It just happens, right? So you give the size of what you want,
Mhm.
it just happens.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Because banners like this, like, that's the important
You want
part
to
is
set
there.
it.
Yeah.
You don't have
Wait.
to go inside of the details to find out. You just like, oh yeah, fix this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. And here, for example, it might be a bit too small. Maybe I can just zoom in a bit. Here you can now see this is this view it's taking. Oh, by the way, we're in edition Bootstrap 5. Again, switching editions here doesn't make a lot of sense because when you're on Bootstrap 5, you don't want the Bootstrap 3 version to be rendered all of a sudden. But you can say, I'm using this query, and I have these streams, and this was what's inside it and what type was inside each one. Okay? So loads of magic.
Really great.
Yeah.
Spread the word, because I just don't have the capacity to do that too.
Can you hide that if there's a non-developer working on this? You don't want to see that.
I'd have to quickly check again what the current setting is. So not everybody sees everything, not all the details. Yeah, couldn't say that. I think part of it, yeah. And there's cases where the button might not appear. And that's why we introduced a new edition button, which I was just testing, demoing over here, which is the one you would just give your admin to switch editions, to be able to preview what you did in the hidden section of the app. And that's also, by the way, one minor detail. When you're generating here, this is not very well documented, but you can also specify which editions you're working on so that the code generator would generate in the right place. It's in the app JSON. Let me just quickly show you this. I know it's probably going to start to be too much for now, but there's the app JSON here, which has a few settings. And this is unfortunately old. I have to quickly update the template, I guess. But if it's using the version 17 of the app JSON schema, then this is the export setting, right? This is like to prevent node modules to be included in the app package. But you should be able to have edition. Am I in the wrong thing? No, it should be about right. Am I still in the... Oh, I'm one level too high here. And usually I'd have to go in and tell VS Code that comments are allowed. But you see here we have additions, and I could like say, okay, I have staging, and this is default is going to be true, and we might have the live. So it's recommending some of the most common ones that we typically include. And when I have this, and now I reload the Copilot, it's going to provide these additions, and it's going to pre-select the right one. Because again, you don't want to screw up your live environment while you're staging. That's what it's meant to be for. And the reason it's in the app JSON and not elsewhere is because we're thinking of doing more automation of things that might not know about the app, that might not be connected to the database. So it's there. One more thing, views. If you want to let your admins switch editions, you can pick users here and say which other users would be allowed to switch editions. Wasn't possible before, right? That's so they can preview your work. Yeah.
The additions are isolated in the sense of the views or the data or both? Or
The additions are actually just code isolation. So if you change the data, it's still going to be for everything. We don't have a method for doing that yet. So basically anything in the folder. That's also why you can have an AppCode in the folder addition, the folder staging, and that's only going to compile for everything in there, and the one in live is only going to compile for that.
And if you wanted to do staging with data, that could be a property of the data that you define?
Yeah, and if you just add new fields, for example, it's not going to hurt the live code. The challenge is if you start making bigger changes for that, we just don't have a solution yet.
And permissions, those permissions that you announced yesterday, so this advanced permissions, so it's possible to apply here as well.
So the advanced permissions are, of course, like this will be a DNN property, right? Not a too sexy property. So wait, wrong thing here. Where do we do this? Page settings, right? The advanced permissions are meant to extend this table here, right? And for example, certain permissions like can navigate would not affect too sexy because that's not something too sexy cares about. But like there's the new permission called content, and I think we're not respecting that one yet because the permission content will just allow content manipulation. And in the old days, up until now, it was all under the one label, edit. So at the moment, we're just checking, can he edit? And I think we're missing out when he can only content. But working on that one. First, we have to get it into DNN.
And then you can do it.
Or the modular.
Okay, I shall release you now.